In James Gunn's quest to bring back iconic Superman elements like the red trunks, will he include this important element that Zack Snyder left out? Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more VD. While Henry Cavill is now regarded as one of the best actors to portray Superman, and fans were extremely sad to see him leave the role after James Gunn decided to revamp the DCU, his Superman debut Man of Steel was divisive upon release. Director Zack Snyder's vision to go with a dark and gritty iteration was criticized by many in 2013. James Gunn's Superman has been all the rage this week after DC Studios released the first teaser trailer for the upcoming film. The film would begin the first chapter of Gunn's newly launched DCU, which recently had a soft launch with the Max series Creature Commandos. The film is set to release on July 11, 2025. From the color tone to the costume of Superman, Gunn's film has already proven to be miles away from Zack Snyder's Man of Steel with Henry Cavill. Gunn mentioned in an interview that he felt good about exploring Superman's kindness, as opposed to Snyder's exploration of power. He might also use one quality of Kal-El that Snyder deliberately left out. While Snyder said that producer and co-writer Christopher Nolan moved them in a grittier direction, he claimed that the decision to exclude the ice breath was his decision, via Empire. "I did that a little bit. Look, I don't know that he does not have ice breath. He just doesn't use it. For instance, in this, people were like, oh, there is no kryptonite. That doesn't mean kryptonite does not exist. It just didn't show up here." Kryptonite did come back in a huge way in Snyder's 2016 follow-up Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. However, Henry Cavill's Superman is still in his early stages during the events of Man of Steel, and still might not know the extent of his powers. Hence, the use of ice breath after his resurrection in ZSJL makes more sense. Snyder's iteration of America's first superhero changed and left out some classic aspects of Superman's mythology. Among many things, this also included the red trunks that he wears over his costume and the lack of ice breath. The superpower is an irreplaceable element of Superman's mythos, but it was only used once in Zack Snyder's Justice League. From its teaser trailer, Gunn has established that it will not be as dark and gritty as Zack Snyder's version and will take a more hopeful tone. In a press review, the filmmaker and co-chief of DC Studios also mentioned why he felt good morally about the upcoming film. He also promised that they would be using all of the heroes' mythology via Variety. Superhero movies have taken these characters and said, okay, it's Batman, or it's Superman, but it's not any of the other stuff. We're embracing all of the Superman mythology. He has a lot of the things that we love from the Superman comics that we haven't been able to see as much of in filmed media, and definitely haven't been able to see in a grounded way, which is what I hope we've created. Part of staying true to his mythology includes some of his powers like ice breath that may sound silly in theory, especially while depicting in a film. Gunn has promised to make these elements as grounded as possible without them being silly. He even had a justification for why he chose to bring back the red trunks. So, Zack Snyder's Superman was not perfect. It definitely had potential and his 5-movie plan was interesting, to say the least, but it is over now and so are all the other issues people had with his take on Kal-El. Now, all the burden, criticisms, and appreciation lies on James Gunn to make a different Superman. If there's one work Zack Snyder continues to be proud of, it's this zombie apocalypse movie that no one expected to become a successful cult classic. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more VD. This May, Netflix offers new shows to keep subscribers entertained throughout the month, and one of the titles added to its library is Zack Snyder's 2004 horror flick Dawn of the Dead. Those who haven't watched this classic, consider this your sign. Zack Snyder is quite the controversial filmmaker of modern cinema. We're familiar with his stylized approach to movies, and he's made a brand of that for himself, but one of the biggest criticisms in his works is his own inconsistency. It's safe to say that he is sort of the hit-and-miss type of director. He is widely known for his efforts on the DCU and the 300 franchise, but many sometimes forget he was also the one behind the zombie apocalypse title, Dawn of the Dead. This was his directorial debut and, surprisingly, the best work of his career. Such reverence to the original movie would bring so much pressure on Snyder to make a worthy remake. Fortunately, he was able to pull this off and create a masterpiece of his own while honoring his inspiration. As mentioned, Dawn of the Dead is Snyder's most acclaimed project to this day for several reasons. It's interesting because many believe it should not work at all, for several reasons as well. First, This was a remake of George A. Romero's 1978 movie of the same title. That one was highly lauded by fans and critics, even hailed as one of the best zombie stories ever made. To this day, Dawn of the Dead remains his highest-rated title on Rotten Tomatoes with a current 77% approval rating from both critics and audience. The filmmaker has a knack for dark themes in his storytelling, which he applies in his works even if they aren't suited. Take Man of Steel, for instance. He could have been contemplating what would happen if a classic superhero like Superman started exploring his own darkness. Perhaps Snyder should have stuck making horror flicks, as he seemed to be very comfortable in this genre, and it complements his own style, too. Snyder was aware he made a project that he would be proud of for the rest of his life. He did not expect it would blow up and become a cult classic, but here it is. In a conversation with Den of Geek, he expressed utter satisfaction with what he created. There's nothing I would change because it's very much the movie I made at the time and it completely satisfied what I was trying to do. The thing I'm proudest of is that, even though it was a genre film made for a studio and low budget, I still feel like I made an unexpected movie. The director admitted that this project taught him a lesson that he still applies to his works today. Tone is everything. Once he's able to set this, the rest will follow through. In 2021, Snyder returned to his roots and released Army of the Dead, although this was not received well by fans. Christopher Nolan shielded Zack Snyder from watching Justice League. Discover the tragic story, fan movement, and the triumph of the Snyder Cut. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more VD. Their creative pursuits have also led to camaraderie between the two, and amid the chaos of one film's production, Nolan stepped in to shield Snyder from unnecessary heartbreak. This story is about one of the darkest chapters of DC that occurred in real life, becoming a saga of tragedy and eventually rebuilding. Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder are both titans of modern cinema and have immensely contributed to the superhero genre. The former is still celebrated for his Dark Knight trilogy, which was revolutionary, while the latter is known for infusing larger-than-life visuals with gritty storytelling. As per reports, the director's wife, Deborah Snyder, attended a private screening and watched the movie alongside Christopher Nolan, who was an executive producer of the film, via Vanity Fair. The experience was far from decent because she recounted the aftermath, stating, "They came and they just said, 'You can never see that movie.'" Zack Snyder had to step away from the 2017 Justice League due to a devastating personal tragedy. The absence of his creative force turned the movie into a lackluster, confusing, and boring experience. Warner Brothers had entrusted Joss Whedon in the absence of Snyder, and the hastily reworked version was rejected by fans and critics alike. Snyder had to leave the movie because his family was struck with the most painful grief that one could ever experience. His daughter, Autumn Snyder, had taken her own life in 2017, which left everyone shattered. The studio's demands kept increasing, and he did not want to be more drained in the process. As per reports, the director's wife, Deborah Snyder, attended a private screening and watched the movie alongside Christopher Nolan, who was an executive producer of the film,